Chapter 831, Something's Wrong. When Lumion withdrew the headless corpse of the abscessed hand and activated the black mark on his right shoulder, he heard Julie's voice along with the sharp, exaggerated sound of a heavy object falling rapidly. Instinctively, he chose the farthest place he could sense as his teleportation destination. Just as Lumion's figure vanished, Albus entered the area with two iron puppets. He hadn't been influenced by Lumion's feigned attempt to rush towards the mountain of corpses. Instead, he took advantage of Lumion's blindness, conjuring a blazing white flame spear and manually hurling it forward to drive Lumion out of the corridor, forcing him to face potential dangers and possible concentrated attacks. Albus himself lagged 2 to 3 meters behind, allowing him ample time to react. If Lumion were to be surrounded or controlled, Albus could avoid the dangerous zone and approach the mountain of corpses from the side. Of course, Albus couldn't afford to fall too far behind. Lumion had just proven he could prevent Wanak from attacking him, potentially reaching the destination quickly and unhindered. If Albus delayed for more than 10 to 20 seconds before entering the area, Lumion might have already made direct contact with 001. In war, acting too quickly or too slowly can both lead to failure. As this thought crossed Albus's mind, he heard the terrifying explosion of something hitting the ground. One of his iron puppets looked up, seeing a massive meteor engulfed in bright flames, illuminating the entire area. It plummeted towards the armored soldiers and countless corpses in the wasteland, heading towards the entrance area where Albus and Wanak were. The meteor fell faster and faster, soon surpassing the speed of sound. Further away, Julie, wearing a slit low-cut dress, stood in midair with the help of icy steps, holding a lantern. With a sapphire ring on her left hand, she drew a downward arc, pointing at where Wanak and Albus were. Son of a bitch. For the first time since entering Morora, Albus cursed uncontrollably in his mind. Isn't she supposed to not have invoked divine descent yet? Isn't she not in a state of divine descent? How could this so summon a meteor? What about Morora's rules? What about 001? Shouldn't there be some restrictions? This is the ability of a demoness of catastrophe. And this demoness isn't even blindfolded. Something's wrong. Although the meteor hadn't reached the level to destroy a city, or the true power of a demoness of catastrophe, Albus still felt genuine fear at that moment. As a member of the Red of War rebuilt by the Ancestor, he could concentrate his power towards the King of Angels, share some of the power in return, and distribute part of the damage he received. However, in Morora, within the core area of Ceiling 001, this special interaction was significantly weakened. Albus could at most temporarily use Sequence 4 powers and some weakened higher abilities, but could only transfer a third of the damage at most. Now, even if he could transfer half or 2/3 of the damage, the remaining part would still be more than his current body could bear. If the meteor had fallen instantly, Albus would have already turned into a charred corpse. Wearing a black blindfold, he leaned back slightly, his hair igniting with red flames extending to his back. Beneath his skin, his bones and flesh faintly glowed with an iron-black hue. Next, he transformed into a blazing white flame spear, carrying the two iron puppets rapidly to the right. He had borrowed the Red Angel's power. The plan was to first avoid the meteor's impact zone, then use the Ancestor's damage sharing, his temporary metal transformation, and the two iron puppets as shields to survive the subsequent impact. Yes, Albus didn't bring the iron puppets because he was fond of them or because he didn't want to lose his eyes. They made excellent shields. As the primary target, Wanak made the same choice as Albus, but without the final protection of the iron puppets, and was hindered by layers of invisible webs around him. As the strands of web became visible, turning grayish-white, Wanak's blazing white flame spear slowed down. Bang! The blazing meteor hit the ground about 10 meters behind Wanak. Boom! Rolling dust, intense flames, and terrifying shockwaves engulfed Wanak. The metal-colored body of Morora's most dangerous person cracked instantly, turning into a charred corpse. Albus, who had fled some distance, was slammed into the white flame spear by the rushing shockwave, driving it to the ground. With a clanging sound, the first iron puppet, acting as a shield, quickly dented and partially shattered, instantly losing its puppet-like feel and becoming scrap metal. Next, the second iron puppet suffered severe damage, and then Albus Medici, who emerged from the flame's spear state, spat a mouthful of blazing blood, his metallized body sustaining damage. Not knowing where he had teleported to, Lumion first heard the explosion, then felt the tangible shockwave slam into him, followed by the burning flames. His ears momentarily deafened, unable to draw knowledge from the brass earplugs. His whole body was flung out, but the shockwave's intensity had dropped to a level a Reaper could withstand. As for the flames carried by the shockwave, they could only ignite clothes, bandages, and hair, barely causing significant burns to his body, and were quickly extinguished by his flame control ability. Siua. Lumion landed heavily, almost dropping the carbide lamp in his hand. The burnt bandages on his face fell off, but fortunately, he kept his eyes shut. At the same time, Lumion felt the headless corpse of the abscessed hand in his right hand and the rotting head in his left hand become agitated, each dragging his body towards the other with terrifying force. Lumion didn't stop them. Instead, he released his grip. He once again activated the black mark on his right shoulder, teleporting to the limit of his current sensing range. He needed to distance himself from the merging parts of the abscessed hand to avoid becoming the first target of attack. Otherwise, he might find himself surrounded and attacked. When choosing a teleportation destination, Lumion deliberately avoided the impact zone and the place where Julie's voice had come from. In the thick, smoky environment, Lumion's figure disappeared, and the two rotting parts of the abscessed hand moved towards each other. The headless corpse grasped the tangled-haired head with its only hand, urgently placing it on its neck. But this attempt was hindered by some force, as if an unspoken rule in the underground mausoleum required the head and body to remain separate. Of course, the obstruction didn't truly prevent the head from reattaching. It only increased the difficulty and slowed the reassembly process. On the other side, the rolling flames and scattered dust calmed down a bit. Julie, standing on the icy steps, saw that Wanek had lost his life force, lying on the ground with deep cracks and charred marks all over his body. She quietly sighed in relief. Wanek had always been her most dreaded opponent. She regretted that Lumion fled early, missing the chance to team up and kill Wanek. Just then, Wanek's charred body moved. The most dangerous person in Mora leaped up, with two dark red flames burning in his eye sockets. He had become an undead creature. For Wanek, who was a special puppet of 001, being alive or existing as an undead made little difference. Moreover, as an undead, he could tap into additional powers. He spread his arms, tilted his head back slightly, and let out a roar like a battle cry. Suddenly, the lantern Julie held went out, and the flames around the mountain of corpses were extinguished. Only the lantern in Albus's hand and the carbide lamp Lumion held, protected by their hunter powers, flickered but continued to burn. Darkness surged back but failed to engulf Julie. Nothing, using the last iron puppet as his eyes, Albus couldn't help but frown upon seeing this scene. That sapphire ring can protect Julie from the underground mausoleum's dark corrosion and dissolution. That doesn't make sense. Even if it could, why did Julie carry the lantern before? To mislead us. And there shouldn't be a demoness of Catastrophe's ability, even if it's a weakened version. Something's definitely wrong. At this moment, Julie let out a low, soul-scratching laugh and pointed her left hand skyward again. In the darkness above, faint light appeared as sharp icicles formed, raining down like a storm towards the wasteland, targeting Wanek, Albus, and Lumion. Wanek roared again. It was like a battle drum, striking Julie's heart and causing her to stiffen momentarily. Next, a tornado connecting heaven and earth formed, sweeping all the icicles and reversing towards Julie. At that moment, whether it was Lumion with his eyes shut, Albus with his eyes covered, or Julie and Wanek with normal vision, they all felt the world shake and heard the creaking sound of the void around them. The rotting corpse of the abscessed hand had finally reattached its head to its neck.